Hi, everybody. Welcome to Happy Hour live on Bruce Sports. We welcome you inside the studios for a Monday edition of the program. Happy opening day for you baseball fans. It certainly has been an entertaining one thus far, and depending on how your team is doing, you may or may not have already started drinking. We've got our drinks, and that's why it's called Happy Hour, of course, right? But we've got a great show in store for you today. A familiar face, and Scott Wisniewski back on the show today. Scott, a very good Monday to you, sir. How are we doing so far?
Hey, in Milwaukee, it's a perfect opening day. It's rainy and overcast.
It is, and the Brewers are losing, so, I mean, everything is perfect.
Everything's right in the world.
Exactly. And then joining us today for the first time is Jimmy Berg. A good day to you, Jimmy. Welcome to Happy Hour, sir. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. It's opening day, and there's so many sports going on this week, so it's exciting.
It is. There's a lot to get to on the show today. We've got a short show, but we got a lot to get to today, thankfully. But before we do that, a quick reminder for all of you to make sure to drop any thoughts or comments that you've got for us in the comments section below, and hit that share button as well for us. That way more people can check out what we've got going on today here on Bruce Sports. First and foremost, Scott and Jimmy, you guys are the big baseball guys, of course, on the show. It is opening day. 3 games taking place yesterday. The storyline that still is blowing my mind from yesterday is Madison Bumgarner's 2 home runs yesterday for the Giants, yet they still lose to the Diamondbacks. But how often, I really don't think that pitchers homer very often, but a 2 home run performance from a pitcher yesterday, kind of a surprising and exciting way to start opening day, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, he's clearly, Madison Bumgarner is clearly a cut above the rest when it comes to hitting pitchers. I mean, he's not a good hitting pitcher. He's a great hitting pitcher. He's a really good hitter.
Yes.
Like, if he were just a position player, his defense may struggle, but he'd hit the ball really, really well.
And I had to read the headline a couple of times when I first saw it. I was like, wait a minute. I'm pretty sure he's a pitcher. And then I went back and did the research, and I'm like, son of a gun, he really is a pitcher. But 2 home runs, though, that's stellar.
Well, they started last year, too, using him late in the season as a pinch hitter when he's not pitching, because the problem with having a really good bat and being a pitcher is you only play every 5 days.
Right.
So they've pinch hit a couple times, he hit a couple pinch hit home runs. It's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. That's definitely the type of player you want on your roster, and definitely something that you don't see very often, but certainly is a valuable asset to have on your team, that's for sure. Talk to me, Jimmy, about the general concept, though, of opening day, because some people think it should be a national holiday, and I'd like to claim that the Super Bowl is more of a national holiday than opening day. But are you one of those people that get sucked into the opening day hype?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember still senior skip day back in high school. That was definitely at opening day. And, I mean, it's just, even though I think football definitely has taken over the popularity part of it, I think still that the national pastime is just part of, like, who we are, especially as a Midwest town. I think that's really awesome. So I'm all in on opening day. I really wish I could have been there today myself. So.
Scott, you've been on numerous sides of it, whether it be the media side or the fan side. Do you still get as hyped opening day?
You know, I get excited for the start of the baseball season. But as far as opening day goes, I think I had a stretch where I was at 28 in a row, and I haven't been to the last 4 because I've started to realize, and again, maybe it's because I've become an old man now, but I started to realize that if I wanted to just be around a bunch of drunks, I'd just go out on New Year's Eve.
Also true.
It's one of those things where I think sometimes, depending on where you are and who you're with and what section you're in, it actually takes away from the real reason I'd be there, which is for the baseball. So tomorrow is the first game I'll be at, and I always call the second home game of the year real fans opening.
That's the big thing, yeah. That's what I've always argued against, too, because you see the 2 times of year that people actually care about baseball. It's opening day, and then it's usually one of the last games of the World Series. Everybody is tuning in like, oh, my gosh, I love baseball so much. I'm like, how many games did you watch this season? And I will be the first to admit that I don't really get that hyped about baseball. That's a well-known thing, and people yell at me all the time for, oh, you hate baseball. I enjoy going to the games, but I don't enjoy following the sport. It's just too much for me personally. But people say the same thing about soccer, which I love, and things go on and on about that. But I think the general concept of it, opening day, it's very much a hyped up thing where everyone's like, oh my gosh, I love opening day. But as you said, you see almost the fans cut in half for day 2, and then the real fans are actually there.
Sure. And if you are a baseball fan, like April's a great time to go. Like, for example, in Milwaukee. All right. So if you're a Brewer fan, they have a deal where for $49 you'll get a guaranteed ticket to every home game in April, which is 13 games, but you don't know where you're sitting until an hour before the game. They text you your seat.
Interesting.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, so if you're a baseball fan, and of course, opening day is excluded. Otherwise, every other game.
Right.
If you're a baseball fan, you can't say, well, it's too expensive to go to baseball. It's
$49.
It's not.
I'm one of those people that buy like the $8 nosebleed tickets and then kind of slowly move up throughout the game, depending on how the game's going. But I mean, I honestly don't mind sitting, at least at Miller Park, sitting up in the 400s because I mean, yes, you're not as close to the action, but you still see everything. There's not too bad of a seat in certain baseball venues, and I think Miller Park is one of those for sure.
Especially if you get those, not necessarily the terrace reserve, but the terrace box where you're
Right.
like literally over the field. Those are great seats. But as far as opening day goes, it really depends on where your franchise is. If you're the Cubs, you're happy about opening day, or Cleveland, or a team that might be on the cusp of maybe this is the year they're a World Series
Right.
team, or this is the year that the rebuild is over and these young players start to contribute. If you're on the other end of it, like in Milwaukee, like in Atlanta, in Philadelphia, they're a little bit ahead of where some of those other teams are, but you're still like, well, boy, like the Brewers, they haven't hit rock bottom yet. All of their stars are in AAA. All their best pitchers are in AA.
Right.
They're 2 or 3 years away from having that feeling where, like, boy, they can really contend. Last year, they played a little over their heads, but if everything goes well, they can have a fun season and maybe be 500. But really, nobody anywhere across baseball thinks teams like Milwaukee or like I mentioned, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Cincinnati are going to even have a shot at the World Series. But it's really where you are in the process that kind of drives some of that excitement too.
Do you think that other places get as excited about opening day as folks in Milwaukee or New York or Boston? I mean, you talk about like the Miami Marlins or the Padres. Like, are those people selling out their stadiums, and are people calling in sick to work just to go to opening day for the the San Diego Padres?
I don't know. I think one of the great parts about opening day here is just we have such a good tailgating atmosphere, which is
Right.
I think is a big part of it, and that's where even when the Brewers aren't doing well, I think they're always going to have a really strong attendance because our summers here, are
They're built around baseball,
and we really value them because of how long the winters are too. So I think it's they're always going to have a good amount of people coming to those games, whether they're really interested in the game or not. We're always going to have that revenue stream coming in, which is I think pretty essential to continuing the quality of the players coming in and just the money that's going into the team.
True.
Well, and the Brewers were smart by building the retractable dome.
Right.
Because in the old days of County Stadium, you'd have a bus that would want to come in from La Crosse or from Eau Claire. You'd get down here and the game's rained out. And it's like, oh, you get a rain check. Great, I got to come 5 hours for my rain check. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a game played, and that's really helped that atmosphere. So it might be a little cold when you're tailgating. At least the game's going to get played, and you can get inside and get out of the rain or the elements or whatever the case may be. As far as Miami goes, though, I don't think Miami even remembers there's a team there.
No.
I mean, it's funny because
I forget.
Well, and when I was a kid, there were no teams in Florida except spring training, single A teams.
Sure.
And everybody's like, "Oh, just wait till Florida gets baseball." They have 2 teams, and nobody cares a lick about them.
Not at all.
The only time anybody comes to a game in Tampa is when the Red Sox or Yankees are playing because there's a bunch of retired East Coasters living down there. In Miami, if it's not the Mets, nobody cares. It's a joke. They won 2 World Series in Miami, and they had to strip the team down and rebuild the year after because they couldn't draw.
Yeah.
It's an embarrassment.
That still surprises me, honestly, and that's the thing. Like, it's not like these are failing franchises, like on the field. Like these Tampa Bay and Florida, or Miami rather, they've done a lot over the last 10 to 15 years, but people forget about that they actually were successful. I mean, the Tampa Bay had some incredible runs for a while. I mean, the Marlins, of course, as you mentioned it, World Series champions. And I honestly I forgot about that until you mentioned that. I lived in Florida when they won the World Series, and yeah, it was a big deal at the time, but you just one in year out the other because it's like, oh, it wasn't Boston, oh, it wasn't Chicago. Like, okay, well, don't care, move on.
Well, they do that with the Heat before LeBron got there. Now, since LeBron left, they don't care. It's like Miami and Atlanta are kind of embarrassing sports towns. They really are. With the success that some of those teams have had, Atlanta, the Braves, when they had that stretch of winning their division back in the 90s, and they couldn't sell out playoff games. It's an embarrassment. It's a city that big, and you can't sell out a playoff game.
Talk to me about the Cubs losing opening day. Number one, how happy does that make you? Number two, do Cubs fans need to stop crying and freak out and just be like, oh my gosh, like there's 161 games left, Cubs fans. Just because you didn't win opening day doesn't mean that your season's over already.
I mean, it made me really happy. I mean, I loved it. But, I mean, it was a really good game, and I think, the Cubs obviously are going to have a really good team this year as long as their starting pitching can hold up because their offense is just, star after star all the way through the lineup, I think. But, yeah, I think, just altogether, I think the Cubs fans just got to relax a little bit. If you don't win game one, it's fine.
It's literally one game, guys.
Yeah.
Relax. I'm not a Cubs fan, but it is kind of funny to see them already in agony. Be like, oh my gosh, we won last year. Now it's just we're totally different. Come on, guys.
Listen, I'm not gonna play the Milwaukee I hate Chicago card. Okay, I do, but I'm not gonna play that card.
Sure. Different card.
Let's just say, okay, so Boston, when they had that long drought and they finally won a World Series, and you felt good for them.
Sure.
And then they became so insufferable and so obnoxious. They almost felt like they were entitled now, and they became baseball royalty.
Right.
I hope, great for the Cubs fans and great, especially for the generations of Cubs fans. There was some nice human interest story.
Sure.
But let's hope that they don't become even more obnoxious than they are now and even more overbearing, no pun intended, Cubs. But because seriously, okay, enjoy it. You won. You got a great team. You're going to contend for 5, 6, 7 years. You've got a huge window. Let's not become insufferable.
Do you buy into the fact that if there's one team that continues to be labeled already as the next Cubs, it is the Milwaukee Brewers? Do you buy into that?
Not yet. Not yet. I like the pieces they have, but I don't think they have a Chris Bryant. I don't think they have an Anthony Rizzo. I don't think they have Kyle Schwarber. They've got some good pieces, and I think they could be a playoff team, but they're going to need to deal some of those extra outfielders and extra middle infielders to bring in some pitching and maybe bring in that marquee star.
Yeah, I mean, David Stearns, I think, is doing a really good job. I mean, when talking about where the franchise was and all the farm system, and I think we were almost dead last how many years ago, and now we're top 5, I think, from what most people say. I mean, they're doing a really good job. And again, all you're doing is acquiring talent. That's all you need to do. And it doesn't matter how many shortstop and second basemen they have or center fielders. I think eventually you're going to be able to make those trades like you're talking about, and then hopefully get that Chris Bryant, to help the team.
And that's ultimately what you're going to need, too, is you're going to continue to have to sort through it. I think folks thought Ryan Braun was that piece for a while, and he had those moments. And he still has those Ryan Braun vintage moments, but he's very much, and Scott, you already are confirming this, very much a different player than what fans know him as.
You know what, though? He's still, if you want to hate him for the PEDs, you can. And I'm not going to convince you not to. If you want to be that guy, you can be that guy.
I'm indifferent on him, honestly.
But if you're one of those guys who says he's making too much money, all right, first and foremost, this is the lowest payroll in baseball. I don't think he's hurting anybody from getting a salary because he's making too much money. Okay, 1. 2, if you look at the way the salaries have gone up, even in the last 2 years, by next year, he'll be a middle-of-the-road top-tier player as far as salary goes.
Right.
So it's not that prohibitive. His salary won't keep him now from being traded. The only thing that could keep him from being traded is if he suffers some more of those nagging injuries and people go, I don't want to take the chance. But if he's healthy and you want to trade him, and I'm not necessarily saying they should because right now he's not blocking anybody's spot.
Right.
But if you want to trade him, it's not going to be the salary. Like everybody's like, well, nobody's going to want that salary. Yeah, maybe nobody in Milwaukee. Maybe the Twins don't want that salary, but a contending team will take that salary in a heartbeat.
No, I completely agree with you. A couple of comments here on Facebook. Corey says, I think Milwaukee gets pretty excited for opening day. It's definitely a city holiday. Aaron says, there's a team in Florida, ? Yes, Aaron, surprisingly there is. Mark on Facebook also says, look at you at Jimmy Berg. Or at
Who said that?
Your cousin Mark Berg, apparently.
Oh, jeez.
Giving you some love, apparently. Tuning in. The Berg clan is
Thanks, Mark.
Loud and strong here. Moving out of the baseball world and into the football world, NFL free agency continues to still be a hot topic. It was reported today that Adrian Peterson met with the New England Patriots but left without a deal. Mm-hmm. Are you surprised that there was no deal struck?
No, I'm not, because the Patriots don't want Adrian Peterson. They'll take him. They want LeGarrette Blount to re-sign for the money the Patriots want to pay him.
Right.
Here's the thing about the Patriots. The Patriots do a great job anytime they're looking at a free agent. The only time it ever gets leaked is when somebody from the Patriots wants it leaked. So if they wanted it leaked, so let's say I really wanted Adrian Peterson, why would I tell you, the general manager of Seattle, that I'm looking at him, unless I have another motive in mind, which is to get LeGarrette Blount to go, oh, okay, wait, maybe I will play for a little bit less because I fit this offense, I want to win another Super Bowl, and I've tried to play in other places, and it was a colossal failure. So I think it was another well-placed, perfect strike by the team everybody loves to hate because they do things like this, and they do it right. They manipulate the media. They manipulate the agents. They manipulate the free agent target into doing exactly what they want, and in the end, 9 times out of 10, they get exactly what they want.
It's a lot of posturing, just a lot of what are they going to do, what are we going to do, and that's where, would he be a good fit there? Well, yeah. I mean, he's going to be a good fit with a lot of teams.
He's a good fit for any team.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to do a bad job no matter where he goes. It just, hearing him visit the Patriots just makes me more mad about what Ted Thompson does, to be honest.
But here's the thing about Peterson. Peterson has to understand, if he became a Patriot, you're not going to have 30 carries every game.
No.
You might against a team like the Colts who can't stop the run, but when Brady needs to air it out 50 times, Adrian Peterson's not going to be on the field for that. James White will be.
Yep.
So if you're okay as Adrian Peterson going, well, I'm not going to tote the rock 240 times, fine, then sign with the Patriots. But if you still want to be treated like Adrian Peterson, that's not the system.
Well, that was the big thing, too, when there was the rumors of him working out with some of the Tampa Bay Buccaneer players last week. There was pictures that emerged of him working out with Mike Evans and Jameis Winston, and people starting to say, oh, is he going to go and be that 1-2 punch with Doug Martin down in Tampa? And I'm like, well, if you're looking for kind of the young and the old version of Adrian Peterson, currently Doug Martin kind of is that young bruiser like AP used to be in the early part of his career. You could get 10 to 15 carries out of both of those guys consecutively a game and be a relatively strong franchise. Tampa Bay is one of those teams that is starting to put the pieces together again after, a long drought. Offensively, they're kind of almost there. Defensively, they still have a lot of things to work out, but Adrian Peterson would certainly help fill a need there, but Adrian needs to look to go to a team where he is going to be that almost that 1.5. He can't be the number 1. He can't be the number 2. He needs to be able to split that time with a Ty Montgomery, a Doug Martin, or I thought he was going to go to maybe Seattle, even split with Eddie Lacy, or even split with Marshawn Lynch out in Oakland or something. Or there's numerous other places he could go, but I agree with you, Scott. He isn't that solely number 1. Go carry the ball for us 20 to 30 times a game and get us 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's just not who he is anymore.
And as long as he wants that number 1 running back salary, he's going to be a free agent for a while.
Right.
And at some point, because they all do, at some point he's going to be like, all right, fine. I'll take $2
He wants
million.
$8 million.
Yeah.
That's what he wants.
Right.
If you sign him for 4, that's probably about right at his age and with how you're going to use him. If he stays on 8, 7, even 6, he's going to be out there for a while.
Well, I mean, even look at Maurice Jones-Drew. He fell off a cliff pretty quick, and running backs.
He was a great running back.
And once you get on the wrong side of 30 as a running back, it doesn't go well for you after that.
I agree. Some of the other hot news here from a free agent perspective, I love this. Jerry Jones and the Cowboys are permitting, that's very nice of them, they're permitting teams to start seeking permission to speak with quarterback Tony Romo. I love the fact that, I know everything runs through Jerry, of course, in Dallas. I totally understand that. But once again, and I know this is, Scott, we've talked about this before with Tony Romo and where he might land. Is there going to be any other teams that now come out of the woodworks that say, oh, we can actually get permission now? Like, wow, thank you, Jerry.
No. If he wants to play, because remember we talked last week about him perhaps, joining the broadcast ranks and being Jim Nance's partner
yes.
on CBS. If he wants to do that, great. If he wants to play, there's a handful of places he can go. I still think Houston's a great place.
Yes,
I agree.
He gets to stay in Texas. Houston, he no matter how banged up Romo is, he's better than Brock Osweiler was. So it's a win-win for everybody. Plus, from an actual star power, maybe attendance draw. Hey, Tony Romo's our quarterback to go with our great defense, and he certainly does have a couple of really dynamic receivers in Houston if that's where he decides to go. Cleveland isn't a good fit for him. It might be a good fit for Cleveland, but I still think if this whole thing shakes down, he ends up playing for the Texans this year.
Well, for someone that is as fragile as he is, do you really want him to go to a city that's going to have a bunch of cold weather for most of the football season? I wouldn't. That body's not going to be able to stay healthy in that cold. He's got to go someplace warm.
I agree.
And they do have a great offensive line in Cleveland, but they have a pretty good one in Houston too. And again, he's kind of made his home in Texas, a couple hours to the west, but still, I think that's where he should go if he's going to go anywhere.
One of the things that I heard that was interesting today, I was listening to The Herd with Colin Cowherd on my drive into the studio today. I know. What's that?
I'm sorry?
Yes, I was. What, did you hear that? No. he called Aaron Rodgers a bad leader, and I was curious to get your thoughts about that. And he said when things go wrong on the field, you see Aaron Rodgers do the little pouty face, roll the eyes, and go stand by himself on the sidelines and not really confront anybody to fix the problems.
Whether it's true or not, Colin Cowherd is a windsock. Colin Cowherd is definitely cut his teeth at ESPN with their shock jock radio and their Stephen A. Smith and the clown that left for Fox.
Skip Bayless.
Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't remember him because he's my arch enemy.
Skipped your mind.
But 2 weeks ago, he was saying that the Packers are doing Aaron Rodgers a disservice because he's the best quarterback in football and they're not giving him weapons. And now he's a bad leader. Okay, well, is it both? What
That's
is
true.
it? And again, it really sucks for this business that guys like Cowherd and guys like Bayless have made a good living being fools. And, Skip Bayless, honestly, do you honestly think he thinks that LeBron James stinks?
No, of course not.
Right. But yet people buy into this, and they go, oh, it's great. It's great debate. It's foolishness. And some of those same people who defend that garbage tell you that you shouldn't watch professional wrestling because it's fake.
Mm-hmm.
Make up
Isn't
your
it?
mind.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's about the same as, like I said, about Skip Bayless and those clowns. It's just foolishness.
That is true. No, I agree with you on that one, too. I mean, people could debate Aaron Rodgers' leadership left and right, honestly. I mean, but
there are things I don't like. There are body language things I don't like.
That is a big thing, yeah.
And I do wish he was a little bit more, better about A, the things he said, and B, I don't want him to be something he's not. I don't want him to be a cheerleader, but he can be a little bit more of a positive influence.
Right. Well, how many times do you see Fox or whoever cutting to Rodgers reacting to a bad pass or a bad play or whatever, they go to a break, you see him getting off the ground, rolling his eyes, being like, oh my gosh.
But let's not forget, Peyton Manning did that.
True.
But he was a media darling. John Elway did it.
Yeah.
I mean, go back and watch John Elway footage. But nobody said he was a bad leader. Dan Marino would dress down his receivers on the field, but nobody called him a bad leader.
Yeah.
So let's just remember that, too.
Do you think it's the fact that culture has gotten more soft as a whole, though, when it comes to trying to get people as a whole? He tries hard. He's not that bad of a leader.
Dan Marino didn't play in a 24-hour sports news cycle.
True.
Where we have to create stories now. We have to create controversy now. Neither did John Elway until maybe the very end when he was winning his last 2 championships.
Right, the late 90s, yeah.
But
that's when it started to change.
Right, because otherwise we'd be hearing the same thing. If Marino were playing now, I can't believe he's calling out his receivers. I can't believe he's getting in their face. But you know what? He buys his linemen isotoner gloves, so he must be a great guy.
Aaron's asked on Facebook, he says, who's more pouty, Cutler or Rodgers?
Well, Cutler. Cutler. I mean, that dude pouts when they're winning.
True. We won by 20, Jay. Yeah,
I guess.
Darn it. Jimmy, do you think Aaron Rodgers is a bad leader?
I don't think so. I do agree with Scott where, he needs to, maybe take some ownership sometimes for some of the mistakes. I mean, a lot of times when something goes wrong, he is, showing disgust. I mean, every once in a while, even though, let's say he makes a bad throw, it would be good for him to, pat himself on the chest and be like, that one was my bad.
Yes.
You don't see that enough. And I think especially in a, a sport like football where the quarterback is your leader, no matter if they are a good leader or not.
Yep.
I think he has to do that even on plays where it definitely isn't his fault because it just takes away some of the burden from some of his other teammates. So,
yeah, I would agree with you on that one. I mean, there's certainly guys. I mean, you're always going to have the most talked about players in the league. It's going to be Tom Brady. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers. Andrew Luck pretends to be in the conversation. Eli Manning is only relevant when the Giants and Odell Beckham are doing something. I mean,
Matt Ryan's getting into that.
He's getting that. J.J. Watt.
Yeah.
I mean, there was people freaking out about the girl that J.J. Watt was dating. I mean, just because the show that I'm on broke the story doesn't mean that anybody in the world needs to care about that. But that's a whole other topic for another time. TMZ, that was fun for 24 hours. Anyway. It's not about me right now. But, people love to hone in on, 6 people. If you literally took LeBron James out and you literally took Steph Curry out of the NBA, how many more people are you going to go talk about? I know Russell Westbrook and James Harden, but, it really is, 3 or 4 people. There's hundreds of players in every professional sports league, yet we always hone in on, 4 players.
Well, and how much of that, too, is laziness? Because you'll hear executives, you'll hear program directors say, well, this is what the fans want. Or are you dictating the narrative?
Exactly.
It's just like they tell you, and understand, I love baseball history, and I get Yankees, Red Sox. I do. I really do. But when you tell me, ESPN, that this is the only thing that's relevant in baseball this weekend because the Yankees are playing the Red Sox, you're dictating that narrative.
Exactly. That's why Tim Tebow was so popular for so long, or Johnny Manziel was so popular for so long. Like, how many other players are there that were doing similar things, if not better things, that people just never talked about? Or just
and they're not
over.
even wanting to seek it out. See, that's
Exactly.
the other issue, too. Like you said, dictating it, you got to at least go look for it, And I think a lot of people right now, they're starting to become a lot more savvy with their sports knowledge. I think people out there are really growing that knowledge, and I think they're hungry for more. They're not just wanting the same sandwich every day of the week,
And honestly, and this is not just me putting platitudes on everybody here. This is why mediums like this work.
Right.
Because you're not just going to get whatever this corporate entity says is going to be the story this week or this month or this year. That's why these entities have popped up and have become successful, because people are flat out sick of ESPN.
True.
And some of the other sports networks that are out.
Exactly. I mean, and yes, I'd be lying if I said I still don't go check ESPN on a daily basis, because there's still, regardless if you talk about it or not, they still are very good at breaking stories as a whole. I mean, you go to Fox, you go to, whoever, CBS, or when you want like the general, or ABC when you want like the national news, but like when you want sports news, you go to ESPN, you go to CBS Sports to get that news.
I agree. And listen, as much as I hate the news cycle and their editorial spin at ESPN, they still do a lot of things right. Their documentaries, their 30 for 30s, their prepackaged pieces that they do are second to none. And obviously they have Disney money behind them, but
Always
nonetheless,
helps.
it's still well done. So it's not that there's nothing worth watching, but if you're going to SportsCenter and First Take and some of these other shows for your opinions, you're being served a bag of goods.
Exactly. I completely agree. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. We'd love to hear what you think about all this chaos when it comes to sports as a whole, when it comes to leadership. A lot of different things that can be talked about in that regards. Last big thing to talk about that we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about is we are just a little under 4 hours away from the national championship between Gonzaga and UNC, tipping off the night down in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. 2 1 seeds. Some folks were hoping, myself included, that it was not going to be 2 1 seeds. I had Michigan going to the final, beating Gonzaga, which, laugh at me all you want for those that still continue to do that. But we also find out the winner of the Brew Sports Bracket Challenge tomorrow as well, too, so make sure you tune in. First place is $100. Second place gets a T-shirt. Third place also gets a T-shirt as well, too. So a lot of good stuff to get to tomorrow, so make sure you come back for that. But when you break down this game tonight, gentlemen, and you look at there's a Cinderella still, unfortunately, because Gonzaga has always been that Cinderella. They're a 1 seed, and they still have been undervalued and called the Cinderella this entire tournament, basically. Do you believe they have what it takes to beat the Tar Heels tonight?
I think they do. I actually picked them to win it this year. I think this is really the first year where they have a complete team. They have a lot of size and athleticism and skill in the post, guys that can shoot and pass. I mean, obviously any team needs that, but they're really well balanced throughout, and they're not just having that one player in a small conference and they're able to dominate and then they get to the tournament and hope for good things. And I think the big thing that North Carolina is going to try to do is just out athleticism, and obviously they get all the best recruits, at North Carolina, but I think there is something to be said with the upperclassmen that Gonzaga has as well, and too many times that goes unnoticed. I mean, even look at Wisconsin this year with them upsetting Villanova. Yes, Villanova had some upperclassmen as well, but you're talking about starting 4 seniors. I think that did them a lot of help. So I think this is a year where they could do it. That Gonzaga could really do it. So,
do you think it's better for college basketball if Gonzaga wins, or does it do a favor to the world if UNC, one of the storied franchises in all of college basketball, wins another one?
I think it would have been great for college basketball if South Carolina would have won.
Right. The women did win, so we have to commend them.
They did.
That's their first one ever, so congratulations to them.
They did. And there were some nagging injuries Thursday and Friday to the stars on that Carolina team, and it kind of turned some things a little bit. Listen, I'm happy for Gonzaga now. I will say this. I did say on the air, it's recorded somewhere, that when the tournament started, I don't want to live in a world where Gonzaga's your national champ.
True.
That said, I think they can beat North Carolina. I really do. Obviously, North Carolina is a better team as far as depth. Okay, we know that. But It's a lot of times it comes down to coaching, it comes down to heart, it comes down to matchups. And if Gonzaga can hit shots, make free throws when they're at the line, and at least stay competitive on the boards, they can easily win that game.
When you look at these two teams, they've only faced each other twice all time, and both teams have won once. The last time they met was in the Sweet 16 back in 2009, where Gonzaga won that meeting as well, too. So it's not like these guys know a lot about each other. I mean, sure, each team has their key stars. I mean, North Carolina has Justin Jackson, who averages almost 19 points a game. I mean, you've got a player like that can go up and down the court all night long. It's going to be a headache for any team, regardless if you're a one seed on the other side of the court like Gonzaga, or if you're a Baylor, or if you're a Michigan, or you're a UC Davis. It's not going to matter.
Well, and they're also on opposite sides of the country, too.
Exactly.
A lot of times when Gonzaga's playing, a lot of people are sleeping, I think, at that time as well in other parts of the country. So, yeah, I mean, it's not surprising that they probably don't know a lot about each other. I mean, obviously they've been watching each other throughout the tournament, which is huge. But I think, yeah, like you said, they could easily win this game, and easily could still be by 3, 4, or 5 points. But it's going to be a really good matchup.
And, Carolina, 4 McDonald's All-Americans like
they
have every year. But and again, both teams are well coached. So don't I'm not saying that Mark Few is a better coach. What I'm saying is he knows how to coach that style. He's been there long. He recruits that kind of kid that stays 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
That integrates themselves in the system, much like Bo Ryan did with Wisconsin in the last 5 years, why they've been successful, because they're certainly not the most athletic or the most gifted team in the tournament. And this is the same with Gonzaga, but Mark Few knows how to get the most out of that group of kids. And at this level, unlike in the NBA, at this level, that really matters.
You're right. You're absolutely right about it. And one thing I think that might also help Gonzaga tonight is over the last 2 games, they've been shooting 48% from the outside the arc as well, too. I mean, you talk about a sport that's dominated by the big play. Everybody loves a good three-pointer, and the fact that Gonzaga has been so successful the last 2 games, if they get started early against a UNC team that likes to keep you going all night long, that could certainly be a deciding factor at the end of the night if Gonzaga is able to sink some early threes to kind of settle the crowd. They are on the West Coast, so it might be a little bit more of a home game to an extent for Gonzaga, since their fans have less traveling than the folks over from UMC. But ultimately, this is going to be an exciting game. Do you have an official prediction for the game tonight, Jimmy?
I think it's going to be Gonzaga 77 and North Carolina 73.
Ooh, okay, 4-point game. All right.
I'm in the same ballpark as far as score, just because I have played this game out in my head 10 times, and it's usually split. So just to be contrarian, I'm going to say 76-74 Carolina, but it wouldn't shock me to see it go 76-74 Gonzaga.
Right. Yeah. That's the big thing, and I've thought about that a lot too. And we've got all kinds of coverage. I mean, college road trips coming up next year. Those guys are going to really dive in deep with all of the stuff that's going on tonight. So they'll give you a more official lineup in regards of who they think is going to win. But you really just have to kind of lean on the UNC side. You have to lean on the fact that these guys have been here before. Like, there's one thing to be the underdog and be the new girl at the party, be like, oh, I'm the pretty one, like, look at me. But it's another thing to be like, yeah, I've been here before. I know how to act in a championship game, and that's what Roy Williams and his guys have done so well for so long. And I think UNC ultimately ends up winning it by 10 or more points tonight, honestly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I think the superiority in coaching is going to end up being the big decider tonight.
Just so you know, the last 10 times 2 number ones squared off, all those games were decided by single digits.
Oh, there we go. It certainly has a possibility. Little fun fact. I like that. That's a very good fact. Well, gentlemen, it's been a lot of fun, and unfortunately, we got to get off the air here in just a moment to make way for Barry Nelson and Ryan Thies tonight. They've got a full hour of college road trip coming at you, starting at 6 Eastern, 5 Central, as they're going to have their big panel back tonight as well to preview the national championship game tonight.
Okay, so I'm going to give a shout out to the South Carolina women.
Please, yeah, and rightfully so.
I'll be honest, I'm not an avid follower of the women's game, and not because I don't like the way it's played. In recent years, up until about maybe the last couple of years, the tournament's always been chalk. The top 4 seeds always make it to the Sweet 16. It's usually 4 number ones or 3 ones and a 2.
Yep.
It doesn't have that surprise factor that the men's tournament does.
Yeah.
So not because I dislike Gino I can't even say his name today.
Gino Auriemma.
And I don't dislike UConn. but it was nice to see them lose.
Yes.
Like, to me, it made me care.
111 game win streak done.
Yeah, and again, great. Maybe they'll win one next year and go undefeated, and that's fine. But it's just nice to see that they can be beaten. Just like I'm sure many fans, and I was only 4-3 when they won their last one.
Right.
But when UCLA was on all those rolls, I'm sure there were people who just beat them once.
Yes.
Like, have them lose a championship.
And how big was that, too, for Mississippi State as a whole? I mean, yes, they didn't win the national championship, but you want to believe that those ladies are going to remember the UConn win more than the national championship loss to South Carolina.
Well, and somebody asked that question today on the radio. Who are you going to remember more, the team that beat UConn or the team that won a national title?
Exactly. You're going to always remember that it was Mississippi State that beat, and then it'd be like, oh, South Carolina won that year. That's right.
It's almost like the U.S. hockey team. People that
they were comparing
win against Russia. It wasn't for the gold medal, but people don't remember who they beat in a gold medal game. They just remember, hey, they beat the Russians.
I don't remember who they beat in a gold medal game. Do you remember
Finland?
Was it Finland?
Finland.
Okay,
yeah, I thought so.
Wow, you're a smarter man than I am.
Well, that's the best part about sports is parody. I mean, really, in my opinion, I mean, there's so many things obviously that you can use, but parody to me is the best thing about sports.
Oh, you're absolutely right about that. Even to make one more cross parallel to that too. I mean, fans remember Brandon Bostic fumbling against the Seahawks, but do you remember the fact that it was then the Patriots that beat the Seahawks in the Super Bowl? People sometimes their brain kind of stops there, and it's like, well, that was so dynamic and crazy.
Well, I'll go one further. Everybody remembers Bostic and the fumble, but they forget about the 12 other huge gaffes that led up to that that shouldn't have even mattered.
Exactly.
So, but poor Bostic.
Yes, sad. He's no longer in football anymore. But all right, gentlemen. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate both of you for joining us. Jimmy, congratulations on making your maiden voyage here with us at Brews Sports.
Thank you.
What did you think of your first happy hour experience?
I'll be back as long as there's another cold drink in front of me.
Always. The fridge is always fully stocked. Do you have anything on social media that people can follow you all to keep it up with you at all?
No, not at this time. Just with me coaching at Cedarburg High School. If you ever want to keep or stay involved with those athletics going on there, we have an awesome athletic webpage that people can really see what's going on, especially for the girls and boys volleyball programs there. So
phenomenal.
Yep.
Scott, same for you, sir?
Yes, Scott was News 2 at Twitter. You can find me there, and I'll start posting. I've kind of gone stale on Twitter for a while and just stuck to Facebook, but I'm going to revamp that Twitter page as long as I can get some followers.
Yes.
Need CPR quick.
Go follow Scott. Yes, bring him back to life. You can find me at Baxter Colburn. You can find Brews Sports at Brews Sports Net on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well too. So give us a follow. Go invite your friends as well too to check out what we've got going on here at Brews Sports. It's a lot of great content coming at you Monday through Friday. We are the Cinderella story of the sports media networks, that's for sure. Coming up next, it is College Road Trip with Barry Nelson and Ryan Thies. They've got the boys back in town. It's Jeff Childs, it is Dom Garrett, and it is Christian Heimel. They are all going to be here with Barry and Ryan. It's going to be an absolute party. They're going to break down the national championship game, and it's going to be an absolute exciting time. So do not miss that. That's coming up at 6 Eastern, 5 Central, right here on Brews Sports. For Scott and Jimmy, I'm Baxter. Thanks so much for watching Happy Hour. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow on Happy Hour at 4 p.m. Central Time. Have a great rest of your Monday, and enjoy opening day and the national championship game as well, too. We'll see you tomorrow.